Today is an extraordinary day. Know why? Because not only is it the anniversary of the birth of national hero Sir Alexander Bustamante, but it's also Jamaica Day. Thank you for joining us on Jamaica Magazine as we highlight these observances. We're also providing a detailed look into the budgetary plans of the Ministry of Finance for the upcoming fiscal year. But first, the news. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay with us for these features and much more.
Tax Administration Jamaica is working to serve you even better. Have you used the upgraded electronic service RAISE 2? Through this online platform, you can check statement balances, start the application process for a taxpayer registration number, file income tax returns, and much more. No lines, no hassle. It's just a click away.
I like the system and it is very, very, very good.
I find it user-friendly.
Log on to jamaicatax.gov.jm or call 1-888-TAX-HELP for details. Use RAISE 2 and experience the upgrade.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh and this is your JIS News for Friday, February 24. Work is progressing on the dredging of the Kingston Harbor under Phase 1 of the Kingston Container Terminal KCT expansion project. The project is being undertaken by concessionaire Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited KFTL. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Dr. Horace Chang, recently toured Port Bustamante for an update on the project. Afterwards, he reported that there had been an increase in productivity at the port since the KFTL took over operations last July. The KCT is now handling 1.5 million 20-foot equivalent units, TEUs, up from 1.3 million.
And they're rising on a steady slope upwards. When the work is complete, we will see a significant increase. And that means not only increase in labor force here that he has indicated that's taking place since the divestment, but there will be increased business activity around the entire terminal area.
The dredging of the Kingston Harbor is expected to be completed by December 2018 at a cost of approximately $150 million. The work involves deepening the entry channel and reinforcing the quay at Port Bustamante to allow for access by larger vessels which are passing through the region following the recent expansion of the Panama Canal. Dr. Chang says his ministry will be working closely with the concessionaire to ensure that the work develops smoothly and efficiently. Cabinet has approved a special budgetary allocation of $200 million to support the execution of Jamaica 55 celebrations this year. This was announced by Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Senator Ruel Reid, at this week's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House.
Cabinet also approved the establishment of the Jamaica 55 Secretariat within the Ministry of Culture, Gender and Entertainment, and to be responsible for the planning and implementation of the year-long activities.
The observation of Jamaica 55 is to take place from January 1 to December 31, with the main celebration period to coincide with the annual Independence celebrations. The Private Security Regulations Authority, PSRA, is urging security guards to sign up for the self-contributory health insurance scheme that is provided through Guardian Life. The health insurance plan takes effect on April 1, 2017. Executive Director of the PSRA, Rosalind Campbell, says the program offers one of the best health coverage packages available.
There are over 22,000 guards and over 300 companies. So the fact of the numbers allow them to get a wider range of benefits for a small amount.
Guards who enroll before or by March 15 will not be required to do a medical to activate the service.
And I would say to the security guards, as I said before at other consultations, it is in your best interest to do this.
Mrs. Campbell was speaking at a recent JIS think tank. Each guard is required to pay per quarter for the service, with 5 packages ranging from $997 per month for single coverage to $3,767 per month with dependents. Payments can be made in installments at the PSRA's office or through a direct deposit at the Bank of Nova Scotia King Street branch to account number 911960. 9 of the island's top tourism workers and 10 leading organizations are now competing for coveted awards under the revamped Tourism Service Excellence Program, TSEP. The awards program is administered by the Tourism Product Development Company. At a recent function to recognize this year's semi-finalists, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett spoke of the importance of quality service in the industry.
I want to remind us and to keep this at the forefront of our mind that tourism is about people. People travel across the world to meet people, to experience relationships with people, to embrace the cultures of people.
The 2017 TSEP Awards will be presented on March 4 at the Hyatt Ziva Rose Hall in St. James. The semi-finalists were selected from 150 nominees for their demonstration of excellent customer service and their contribution to a positive visitor experience. And finally, the National Family Planning Board's Sexual Health Authority is encouraging Jamaicans to use dual methods of contraception to protect against pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. The dual method refers to using either a male or female condom at every act of sexual intercourse, while also utilizing another contraceptive method such as the pill, the injection, the hormonal implant, or the intrauterine device IUD.
The use of the male or female condom along with another contraceptive method will provide the ultimate protection.
The authority's director was addressing a recent JIS think tank. He revealed that data from the most recent reproductive health survey shows that 47% of the births that occur in Jamaica are unplanned, mostly among the 15 to 24 age group. There is also an estimated 29,000 persons currently living with HIV, with the highest increase in new infections coming from that same age group. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Some marine, you know. Yeah?
Yeah, man, I have the package 60,000.
60,000?
Yeah.
How much I want?
Yeah, man, 2 bays I want.
Yeah, man, the one that's so.
Grand,
yeah, man. Same. Alright,
What one, cat?
you don't know, I sit downtown the other day there. Oh. All the brethren, them man, we buy and sell marina. One of them I sell a 6-pack for $1,000 and the next one I sell one for $200.
So where why?
Buy 5 of them for $1,000. Think them can't rob me.
So Uncle Fancy is the same $1,000 you would spend to get the 6? Seriously?
Tell them again now, my math brains.
Math count.
Math count.
Sponsored by the Ministry of Education.
Next, the projects to be executed by the Ministry of Finance during the next financial term.
The government must be lean, efficient, and effective, doing well the things that only government should do, and removing obstacles for the private sector.
What government aims to do well over the short to medium term is facilitate accelerated economic growth and job creation in Jamaica. With a lean but well-structured budget of approximately $385.8 billion, the Ministry of Finance is helping to lay that foundation in fiscal year 2017-2018. The bulk of the ministry's recurrent expenses is to make debt servicing payments in the amount of $137.85 billion. Money is also being allocated to make pension payments to public sector workers and administer the operations of Tax Administration Jamaica and the Accountant General Department. More than $26 billion is provided for general public services. Of that amount, $10.6 billion is for contingencies, including provisions for groups that have not yet concluded wage negotiations for the 2015-2017 contract period. The allocation also allows for compensation adjustments that may arise from new wage negotiations between the government and public sector bargaining groups.
And I do look forward to the next round of negotiations, which we will settle very speedily.
Outstanding salary arrears to groups in the public health sector is also factored in the contingency funds, as are special consumption tax on fuel refund to the PCJ and costs associated with the public sector transformation program.
We need the capital expenditure to be done, projects to be implemented, jobs to be created. It's part of our growth agenda. It is part of achieving 5 and 4.
The Finance Ministry has a sizable capital budget in the 2017-2018 fiscal year, most of which comes from the Consolidated Fund. As is expected, the largest portion of that amount is to pay down on the public debt. But the Capital A budget also makes room for some important infrastructure projects, including the construction of the Falmouth Tax Office to provide improved and efficient tax services to the public. $158.48 million is provided to complete that construction and furnish the new building. The Finance Ministry is also supporting government's economic growth and job creation agenda by providing the Port Authority of Jamaica with a $1.5 billion loan to facilitate the expansion of business process outsourcing centers in Montego Bay and Portmore. And government is setting aside $500 million in contingency money to rehabilitate public infrastructure in the event of a natural disaster. Jamaica's multilateral and bilateral partners are also providing $2.5 billion to help finance capital projects in the new fiscal year. Through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank, $1.6 billion is allocated to continue work under the Fiscal Administration Modernization Program. This year's targets include the continued modernization of tax administration, as well as the strengthening of the debt management and central treasury management systems and customs control and security.
We can't achieve 5% growth in 4 years if we don't have a customs that is responsive, that is efficient, that makes things happen.
In further support of that growth strategy, $21.67 billion is allocated to support public sector transformation within the Finance Ministry. Another $887 million will be spent on the broader strategic public sector transformation project. And $2.4 million is provided for the Jamaica Business Taxation Reform JAM Tax project, which began in February 2014 and is projected to conclude in August of this year. The objective is to improve the regulatory, institutional, and administrative framework for business taxation by reforming the tax appeal process and legislative framework.
The task to invigorate economic growth and to sustain it is urgent.
We're not talking about cutting corners. We're talking about expediting processes.
Informing, educating, entertaining. That's what we do. Keep watching Jamaica Magazine.
Wait, hold on. Colin, hey, what's going on? You know, say, I'm on my way to go look about the farm work program. Aye, I love to do the farm work program there, you know. But remember, I serve a 5-year prison sentence for a minor crime. Them can't clear it, you know.
Yes, Colin can get his record expunged. Expungement is having a conviction removed from your criminal record after certain specifications have been met. Visit the Criminal and Civil Justice Division in the Ministry of Justice for more information.
Born under the Pisces sign in the parish of Hanover, this baby boy grew up to become Jamaica's first Prime Minister. Take a look at the life and achievements of national hero Sir Alexander Bustamante.
He was a commanding figure, a ruggedly handsome and stylish gentleman who was very sure of himself. He was born William Alexander Clark in Blenheim, Hanover in 1884. At age 20, he did what was typical of many middle-class Jamaicans like himself: migrate to make a life abroad. For the next 30 years, his adventurous spirit took him to several countries, including Panama, the United States, and Cuba. And during his travels, he changed his name from William Alexander Clark to Alexander Bustamante. In Cuba, the seeds of what later became his lifelong passion were planted as he watched Cuban workers agitate for better working conditions.
In 1933, he was in Cuba. In fact, he left Cuba for Jamaica. And as you know, in Cuba, there were thousands of Jamaican workers in the Santiago Oriente region. And he would have seen the agitation in Cuba in 1933 as Cuban workers, in fact, were in rebellion in 1933.
Upon his return home in 1934 at age 50, Bustamante set up his business in downtown Kingston. This brought him in daily contact with the woe and misery of the Jamaican people.
He goes into the money lending business, and who better to understand the conditions that people suffer than someone who lends money. And this, I believe, must have developed in him the almost hobby of writing letters to the press, commenting on the terrible conditions existing in Jamaica in 1938.
He bombarded the Gleaner, the island's main newspaper, with letters about the plight of Jamaican workers. These letters were regarded as hostile and earned him some unsavory labels such as pest, communist, and usurper. Around September 1937, Bustamante seemed to have taken the decision to be the voice of change for the Jamaican worker. He took his campaign to the street corners and homes all over the island. From Westmoreland to Kingston, Bustamante drummed up support, encouraging workers to protest for better working conditions.
When the workers on the waterfront in May 1938 went on strike, it's a completely spontaneous thing. St. William Grant, an ex-Garveyite, actually approached Buster. I said, come and talk to these wharf workers. When he went down to the wharf, the workers were a little bit unwilling to talk to him because Buster was a brown man or near white. But Grant actually persuaded them to listen. And this is how he actually got a toehold into the labor movement in Jamaica.
He was affectionately called Buster or Chief, the champion in the struggle for workers' rights. Those whom he represented stretched from the sugar fields in the west to the docks of Kingston and to the banana fields in the east. And Jamaicans embraced him wholeheartedly.
He had a common touch. And he was very much easy and at home in some back room of some shop, eating saltfish and crackers and whatever, you know, having a drink and elbowing with the people and talking very much at home. Not that he, I mean, he was always the boss, you know. I mean, Buster, I mean, he wouldn't suffer, you know, any foolishness. But he rubbed shoulders easily with people. And you see him he was a street man, street corner man too, you know, loved to talk on the street corners, quite at home.
Buster's determination to represent the workers made him a thorn in the side of the colonial authorities. His now famous battle cry, "Shoot me, but let my people go," made him a hero in the eyes of those he represented.
The chief a come, the chief a come, the chief a come, was the son all over the land. But them wasn't looking for the Indian. It was a tall, handsome brown man. Anyway, the strike there, Buster name would have called. From Frome, Surge Island Estate, the waterfront. But he never mattered to him at all. For the working class had no leader. And he was ready to lead them.
He was a unique phenomenon. I don't think anything else like Buster has been thrown up since Buster. It was just the niche he carved for himself in the Jamaican society among the working people. The businessmen had to take cognizance of him because he was this trade union man, you know, and a fearsome person. He, I don't know quite how to put it, you know, but Buster, it was this whole physiognomy, you know. You didn't, if you saw him on the street, you know, the way he walked, and the way he looked and the way he would look at you. He had very challenging eyes, you know. And he had a peculiar way of speaking. Nobody spoke like Bustamante.
The workers' confidence in him translated into mass support for the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, which he formed in May 1938. In no time, it was a tremendous success.
It was a blanket union which would have incorporated people of all occupations, laborers, artisans, wherever. And they kept the fees fairly low for membership, and I think that helped. And it certainly became up to 1948 or so, it was the largest trade union in Jamaica.
The support also spilled over into the Jamaica Labour Party, which Buster formed in 1943 to compete in the 1944 election, the year of universal adult suffrage.
The fact that he swept the elections, I think, is part of an indication of the strength of the BITU and how well he himself was personally known throughout the island.
Buster's success in the election carried over to the next election, and he won a second term in office in 1949. He became Jamaica's first chief minister and started the work to get Jamaica to become a part of the British West Indian Federation. Jamaica became a member in 1958 during the term of office of the other political party, the People's National Party. However, Buster later changed his mind about Jamaica being a part of the Federation, as he felt that it would drain Jamaica's resources to help the other British territories.
I think in principle a little bit reluctant to believe that the Federation had the resources to be viable, because there are times you refer to the Federation of Paupers. We're all poor people. And I think he also projected the image of a federation in which Jamaica's resources would be drained to assist islands which are even poorer than us. So everybody will become poor. This was his kind of thing. But I don't think that the intention was ever to create antagonism between Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean.
Buster again took up the role of the defender of the Jamaican people, who backed him when they voted by a referendum to withdraw Jamaica from the Federation and start Jamaica's move towards independence. His political first came again when the JLP won the 1962 election. At age 78, Bustamante was named the first Prime Minister of an independent Jamaica. 2 years later, due to illness, he left the political scene and in 1967 retired from public life.
Bustamante's detractors have almost suggested that he was very limited intellectually. But there's really not any evidence of that, you know. There is really no evidence to suggest that he was intellectually incompetent. What is true is that Norman Manley was acknowledged to be such a brilliant law practitioner in the law that he seemed light years ahead of Buster, but he's ahead of everybody else too. No, I don't think he was as limited as some people make out, and I think he was able to grasp important issues and to deal with them head on.
The nation's highest honor, National Hero, was conferred upon Alexander Bustamante in 1967. Here again, he created history, being the only person to have received this honor while still alive.
We have often mocked the Jamaican people by saying that what they're looking for is a messiah. So what? Why shouldn't they look for a messiah? And what the word messiah really means to them was a champion, a bodyguard, a champion. And I think what the Jamaican people have always wanted is the kind of leadership, especially in the old days, that would be able to take them out of the gross difficulties under which they labored, lift them out of it, give them a vision and hope of where they ought to go. You can't abandon people and say, shift for yourself. You have to bring them together and give them that leadership and vision about themselves and their country.
Bustamante lived for 10 years after, basking in the rewards of his labor. Today, there are numerous monuments that honor his memory and the part he played in the history of this nation. Alexander Bustamante died on August 6, 1977, 15 years to the day that he stood proudly to witness his ultimate success for the Jamaican people, independence.
Let's celebrate Jamaica to the world. Fastest man in the world. First Jamaican woman to win gold in Olympic 100-meter sprint. An upcoming global superstar. Mouth-watering meals. And a vibrant set of people. We are Jamaicans. Let's get together and bring back the love.
Jamaica, Jamaica, what a blessed country. Our national anthem makes the plea. Eternal Father, bless our land. And this land is truly one with a bountiful of blessings. Our teachers are among the best. Our nurses are in demand. Our music has fed the struggle for freedom near and far. And our athletic prowess, well, it's legendary. Touchdown anywhere in the world in black, green and gold, and bet you're saving someone will greet you saying, Wagwan. If you're traveling the Far East, play some reggae music, particularly the likes of Sir Bob, and more than likely you'll get a few bobbing heads and smiles. For these reasons and more, let's stand proud this Jamaica Day. As the theme aptly says, celebrating Jamaica, exploring our legacy in a global context. We are so blessed that we name gone abroad. Continue to promote branded Jamaica and be proud to say, I am Jamaican. This pride will assist us in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
Our land has been suffering from immorality.
This is Ibo Cooper of Third World, lecturer at Edna Manley College, chairman of Jamaica Reggae Industry Association, saying to Jamaica, whether young or old, look around you and see what you have right throughout the year. I have now filled out 9 passports with traveling, and I've been to every corner of the earth, and there are people who would want what we have. They beg me to come to Jamaica because right now in the Middle East is war. Right now in the north is ice. We have a beautiful place. Please preserve it. Love one another. Like how my granny did tell me to love people. The lady who don't have nothing to eat, a shut in, make sure she's alright. The people them who can walk like me and you, make sure them alright. I see a youth the other day try to rob a blind man. My youth, what you do? We couldn't do them thing there. Help the blind. Help the pregnant lady. Love, you can't beat it.
This is where we close the pages for today's show. Remember, the information continues to flow on our social pages. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You may also download our app from the Google Play Store. Or, for more features, click on our YouTube channel. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Have yourselves a great weekend.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.